Good morning, everyone! Today we're heading to Saqqara, and as you will see, Saqqara isn't only about pyramids and mastabas. Today we'll see the lesser-known tombs from the New Kingdom, which belonged to the highest officials from the end of the 18th dynasty, including Horemheb, the powerful general of Tutankhamun, who became a pharaoh himself. Today you'll see exceptionally rare footage of this ancient site and learn more about courtiers of Tutankhamun and extraordinary times they lived in. Let's go! The New Kingdom Cemetery is located just 250 meters southeast of the Pyramid of Unas, which I showed you in the previous episode. Although the capital of the 18th dynasty in the 14th century BC was Thebes, today's Luxor, Saqqara, the oldest, largest and holiest necropolis of Memphis, again became a popular burial place for the Egyptian elite, including court officials. Memphis remained the main political, cultural and religious center of the north. The proximity of Heliopolis, the holy city of Atum-Ra, was also not without significance. It was then, during the 18th dynasty, especially since the times of Amenhotep III, that there was a renaissance of the solar cult, manifested in a new funerary architecture. We have pylons and courtyards decorated with colonnades. These chapel tombs resemble small temples oriented east-west. Miniature pyramids were erected on the roofs of the central chapel, an ancient symbol of the solar cult. This new type of tomb would become a symbol of Ramessid Egypt of the 19th and 20th dynasties. We are in the tomb complex built for Tutankhamun's treasurer, Maya, and his beautiful wife, Meryre. Unlike the Theban tombs of the nobility of the New Kingdom, those Memphite here in Saqqara have no decorations in the underground rooms, only in the above-ground chapels. As you'll see, the tomb of Maya is unique in this respect. The best preserved underground of the tomb was discovered only in 1986. A group of British and Dutch archaeologists found it by accident. While exploring one of the shafts belonging to an army officer in the service of Horemheb, Ramose, buried nearby, archaeologists found a tunnel made by tomb robbers. The tunnel led to these wonderful rooms.
Oh, no, I can have my backpack. It's okay.
Eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of place.
Okay.
We were in smaller tombs.
One of the discoverers, Geoffrey Martin, described this moment. We had been in total darkness for about 15 minutes. Suddenly we glimpsed wonderful reliefs and were extremely surprised to find ourselves in an antechamber leading to a burial chamber. My colleague looked at an inscription on a wall and exclaimed, "My God, it's Maya!" Unfortunately, almost all the lamps here are defective, as you can see. The flashing light distracts attention from these beautiful reliefs. Luckily, I have my own lighting, which, surprisingly, I was allowed to use while filming. One of the reasons why the underground chambers in Saqqara weren't decorated is that the rock is very soft, but here the ancients covered the walls with limestone slabs. However, they didn't place the slabs directly on the bedrock, but isolated them with a layer of earth. Thanks to this procedure, the salt didn't penetrate the reliefs, so they remained in good condition. However, this isn't the original location of the rooms. The threat of collapse of underground chambers and corridors prompted conservators in 1994 to move the best preserved reliefs in their entirety to a new underground gallery dug under the outer courtyard. The layout is almost identical to the original, but to get here I went down only a few steps, whereas the original chambers were 20 meters underground. I was surprised that such a high-ranking official had a tomb with monochromatic decorations. So far I've seen such in the tombs of the New Kingdom middle class in Thebes. We only see the color yellow on the reliefs. Why? It certainly wasn't about the lack of funds. After all, Maya managed the empire's finances. As the son of a courtier, Maya was raised in the royal court of Amenhotep III. He was one of Akhenaten's closest entourage during his turbulent, revolutionary reign. He was not a victim of the Amarna purges or the subsequent anti-Amarna terror. Under the rule of the last of the Thutmosids, Tutankhamun, he obtained the highest honors, such as overseer of the treasury, royal scribe who he loves, as well as king's favorite, hereditary prince, and governor. He performed these functions during the short reign of Pharaoh I, as well as in the first years of Horemheb's rule. The superstructure of the tomb was discovered much earlier, in 1843, by the famous Prussian Egyptologist Richard Lepsius. The well-preserved walls of the chapels with colorful reliefs, hidden for thousands of years under the desert sands, were then plundered and almost completely destroyed. Remains of one of many statues showing the distinguished couple. Extremely exquisite workmanship. Other realistic statues of Maya and Meryre can be admired today in Leiden, the Netherlands. It seems that Maya completely rejected Akhenaten's aesthetic innovations and had himself portrayed in the traditional, harmonious style prevalent in the time of Amenhotep III. Of course, the most famous tomb here belongs to the future pharaoh, the last ruler of the 18th dynasty, Horemheb, which means Horus is jubilant, who built this magnificent monument while Tutankhamun was still alive, when it seemed that he had reached the peak of his brilliant career as the commander-in-chief of the Egyptian army. He certainly didn't expect that he would soon become the most powerful man of his time, a great reformer of the state with a passion for destroying all remnants of Akhenaten's infamous rule and his religion. This is another tomb resembling a sun temple. Originally having pylons, it now has two pillared courtyards, and above the room of offerings there was a small pyramid. It's still unclear how long he reigned. Researchers are divided. According to some it was 30 years, others say only 14. Horemheb initiated a great program of rebuilding the country, Mesut, Renaissance. His rule, as you might guess, was characterized by militarism. He restored the Pre-Amarna order with an iron fist, opening the temples and appointing high priests from among his soldiers, which guaranteed their loyalty, and perhaps this was the only way to recreate the large priesthood required to service the reopened great sanctuaries, as the lineages of priests, especially those of Amun, were, as we know, the target of Akhenaten's persecution and terror. But let's go back to General Horemheb. Quite unusually for the tomb of a high dignitary, Horemheb doesn't mention his ancestors or origins, which suggests that he was a commoner. As a man of lower class, he probably rose to the top as an excellent soldier and commander. Of course, in the tomb of Generalissimo Horemheb, the most interesting scenes are from his war campaigns, during which he restored Egyptian rule over Syro-Palestine and Nubia, lost during the Amarna period. The second colonnade courtyard is adorned with reliefs. The famous scene shows the counting of Nubian prisoners before sending them to Egypt. These depictions differ from those I showed you earlier in a Theban tomb from the same period belonging to the viceroy of Kush, Huy. There, the tribute of Nubian dignitaries sending gifts to Egypt was shown as voluntary. Link to the video in the description. Here we clearly see the prisoners of war. The captured are watched over by soldiers armed with batons. A military scribe is probably writing down the number of prisoners. As we know, bounded and humiliated foreigners are a popular motif in Egyptian art. It had both political and religious significance. The ethnic features of non-Egyptians were exaggerated, the otherness and inferiority emphasized. As servants of chaos, they were to contrast with the Egyptians, who presented themselves as maintainers of the cosmic and moral order, Maat. Horemheb under Tutankhamun conducts military campaigns to restore Egyptian rule over the lands lost during Akhenaten's chaotic rule, including those in the south, in Nubia, where he pacified the revolt of the local elite. Labor was in demand. During the 18th dynasty, the number of foreigners in Egypt was to increase significantly. A beautiful scene showing a harnessed chariot, a groom boy resting on the back of a horse, maybe waiting for the coachman to arrive. Horemheb shone much larger than the others. As a powerful and important figure, he gifts his subordinates with gold collars, probably in recognition of their merits. Among the recipients, according to some, one can recognize the future vizier of Horemheb the pharaoh, named Paramessu, whom the childless ruler would anoint as his successor and who will take the name Ramesses I. Traces of the activities of later architects in the tomb point to the cult of Horemheb, established by the Ramessids, who deservedly considered him the godfather of their new dynasty. One of Horemheb's first high-ranking positions was the royal spokesman for Egypt's foreign affairs. So when he became army commander, he was already an experienced diplomat. On the walls of the tomb we read, "The king's messenger in front of his army to the foreign countries, to the south and the north." Horemheb was also sole companion, he who is by the feet of his lord on the battlefield on that day of killing Asiatics. The reliefs depict processions of captured Asiatic enemies of the Egyptians, the Hittites and Syro-Palestinian Semites, bounded and driven into captivity to Egypt, including women and children. The general's most famous campaign was the Egyptian invasion of the kingdom of Amurru in Syria, then a vassal of the Hittite Empire under Mursili II. At that time, I, the vizier and closest advisor of the prematurely deceased Tutankhamun, ascended the Egyptian throne, but old I ruled for less than 4 years. Horemheb's accession to the throne, probably in 1319 BC, didn't mean abandoning his Memphite tomb. The king continued its construction, probably to bury his 2 wives, Amenya and Mutnejmet. The remains of Mutnejmet and her stillborn child were found in a burial chamber 28 meters below the surface. Horemheb himself, of course, rested in the Theban Valley of the Kings. The beautifully and colorfully decorated tomb Kavi 57 is unfortunately still closed to visitors. The incised feet are ancient graffiti, but they don't mean "I was here." It's a form of prayer. A pilgrim during the late period to Horemheb's tomb wanted to remain forever in his presence. Another tomb from the times of Tutankhamun. It belongs to Meryneith, a high official and priest who reached the peak of his career in Amarna under the rule of the heretic king Akhenaten. The tomb was discovered by Dutch archaeologists only in 2001. The monument began to be erected at the beginning of Akhenaten's reign, before the court was moved to the new capital, Akhetaten, in today's Amarna. Also, the name Meryneith, beloved of Neith, could still be accepted at that time. We know that shortly afterwards the courtier changed his name to Meryre, the one loved by the sun. Here in Saqqara, his title inscribed in the tomb reads, "The steward of the temple of Aten." So he was probably the same person as Meryre I, the only known high priest of Aten, whose abandoned tomb was discovered in Amarna. As you can see, some of the decorations were made solely in the Amarna style, but at some point the work stopped, perhaps during Meryneith's service in Amarna. After some time the work resumed, but the tomb was decorated in a different style, typical of the times of Tutankhamun. So, here we've got old Egyptian gods next to the solar disk, Aten, who not long ago was the only god to whom it was allowed to pray. This is a typical situation for the transitional period, between the death of Akhenaten and the beginning of Horemheb's crusade. Although Meryneith survived turbulent times in the pharaoh's court, serving there continuously since the time of Amenhotep III, he was probably considered too involved with Akhenaten's heresy and quickly fell out of Tutankhamun's favor, as we know for sure that he was never buried here. One of the latest discoveries in this cemetery is the tomb of a royal official and butler of Akhenaten and Tutankhamun, Ptahemwia, whose name means Ptah, is in the bark. It was discovered in 2003, of course, by the Dutch. This is another tomb from the period of transition from the Amarna regime to the return of orthodoxy in Egypt. The titles of Ptahemwia were written among the reliefs: Royal Butler, Clean of Hands, Master of Secrets of the Two Cobra Goddesses, and King, Unique Friend. Tomb of Pi and Raia, father and son. Pi was the overseer of the harem of Tutankhamun. Harem is the part of the palace occupied by women and children belonging to the royal court. After Pi's death, his son, Raia, performed the same function, serving Tutankhamun, I, and Horemheb. We see his reconstructed anthropomorphic sarcophagus. One tomb belonging to a father and son is very rare in Egypt. The tomb was used for family burials until the times of Ramesses the Great. Of course, we also have intrusive shafts from the Said and Persian periods. So as we know, the cemetery continued to function long after Tutankhamun's death. We are now in the tomb of Tia, who was overseer of the treasury under Ramesses the Great. Interestingly, we know nothing about Tia's origins. There's no evidence to suggest that he inherited such a powerful office from his father. However, we know what could have made his career easier. He married the daughter of Pharaoh Seti I and the sister of Ramesses, who, interestingly, had the same name as him. So, yep, Tia married Tia. Although the tomb was looted already in the 18th century, several beautiful reliefs have survived. This is my favorite Ramessid style. At that time, figures were presented in a rather light, flexible and stylized way. Ramessid artists didn't really care about the proportions, although they are not grotesque like in the Amarna style. Also, the composition of scenes was no longer chaotic, but harmonious. We see a procession of priests carrying flowers and leading animals. Of course, more courtiers from the end of the 18th dynasty are buried here. I showed you all the tombs open to visitors and a little more. Let's also remember that most of Tutankhamun's officials were buried in Thebes. Only some of them chose the oldest necropolis of ancient Memphis, the capital of Djoser and Khufu, which the Ramesses soon would make the capital of the empire again. From the New Kingdom Cemetery in Saqqara, we have a wonderful view of the pyramids in Luxor. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy our historical adventures and want to help me continue this, please join my Patreon community, link below the video. Please like, comment and share my video with your friends. Special thanks to all supporters of my channel, especially to my dear patrons. Thanks to you, I can create new content. And if you're new here, I recommend you to watch my videos from other ancient sites, as well as my podcasts about ancient Egyptian beliefs and history. Last but not least, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to be up to date with new episodes. See you on another ancient site.